Hello, good morning. This is Reanimated Podcast, episode 166. For those of you following along at home, you might think that we should be on like 168 by now, but that's because reasons. I don't have time to go into it right now. This is a very professional podcast. We never screw up our numbering. My name is Stuart. The cackling tones of H.A. Conrad are joining me on Reanimated this morning. Hello, H.A.
Hello, good morning.
How's it going?
It's good.
It's Easter Sunday.
'Tis.
Bunnies are frolicking. Spring has sprung.
Children are desperately wanting icons that have not been prepared yet.
No, these are all things that are weighing on my mind quite heavily. But nothing is weighing on my mind quite as heavily as having to have watched 2 one-hour-long episodes of Walking Dead for this podcast. It was a slog. It was homework, but we'll get to that.
Yep.
Good gosh. All right. News. We got some newses. Number one news is Greg Nicotero wants to make different kinds of zombies. Maybe this isn't news. Maybe this is just like, yes, of course. But one of the other things from the Screen Rant article was a revelation that I had missed when they reported it before, that there are potentially more Walking Dead spin-offs in the works.
Yeah, this surprised me a little bit, especially because viewership is down. And I should say that it's down, but still compared to a lot of shows that are currently on, it's still quite successful. Like when I'm saying it's down from like initial viewership. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on that plays into that. One is that just the enormous amount of content that is online right now. Yeah. And I feel like you and I have touched upon this just a little bit, but a lot of people, when they, and myself included, when they tend to watch shows now, tend to binge watch more than watching things week by week. So a lot of what is included in the ratings is the weekly the ratings of people who are watching it in the moment.
The numbers that we're reporting that are put on Wikipedia next to, like, when we're looking these up, that's who watched it on TV. But then there is another table that shows you, okay, who watched it on DVR, and then later on. I mean, I'm sure none of this counts Netflix, because that just has to account for millions more.
Right. And so, I mean, I think that you have to take some of these numbers with a grain of salt. And I don't think that they have quite figured out how to really incorporate all those numbers into the ratings of the show. And not just Walking Dead, but other shows too. There are shows that I have discovered, and obviously we've been behind the ball on certain things, more so me than you, but in terms of discovering content and then watching it 2, 3, 5 years later. So yeah, myself, and that's who I'm talking about right now. But so I think that there has to be a better way, but in terms of live viewership, the numbers are down. So the idea, and you know, Fear the Walking Dead has been doing a little bit better, but I wouldn't say that it's as successful as The Walking Dead was right out of the gate. It has basically increasingly improved as they've hit their stride. And I feel like the new season is showing promise, but I don't know that there needs to be another show about zombies and frozen zombies at that.
Whoa, bite your tongue, H.A. Conrad. There does absolutely need to be another show about zombies.
Not necessarily within the Walking Dead universe, though. I think that we could deal with other zombie shows. And I love Greg Nicotero. I love this idea, but why can't we just do this sort of, I mean, I guess you have to stay in the universe of, if you're looking at the regular show, they're going to stay Southern, they're not going to get warm, and they're not going to go into like the seasons and things like that. But I feel like there's got to be a way to show that, or I don't know. But maybe not necessarily a whole series, maybe a mini series, I don't know. But I just feel like already they're showing some audience dissatisfaction or saturation in terms of this particular type of content. So
some background on this article is Nicotero wants to make frozen zombie shows because he thinks the frozen zombies are awesome and that they could freeze and then thaw, and that would be super cool for a zombie show. And I agree, honestly. If it's like every summer is when the zombie problem arises, and in the winter you just have like human drama, you know, that could be an interesting show. And then
I guess so.
The other element to this was that Kirkman apparently already did a or a comic spin-off called Alien, which was set in Barcelona during his zombie apocalypse. So even within his Walking Dead universe, he has already taken this across the Atlantic and followed some people through Outbreak, I think, in Barcelona. So and some comments from some of these folks, these important Walking Dead world folks, have Screen Rant saying like, yeah, they're probably bringing another show. And Gimple is apparently now the showrunner for the entire universe, and I think there have been some of Walking Dead, not our entire multiverse, and he's apparently also probably working on other projects. So I think this is probably further along than you and I had any idea.
Oh, I definitely think it is based upon this article, because this is getting people ready to prepare to watch this and that kind of thing. So, I'm not necessarily surprised. I think that's what people keep doing, and I think, despite the saturation point, if they decide to go web series, if they decide to just release something, I don't think that's what they will do. But there's a lot of different options for doing this. But man, that's a lot of work, 3 full-time shows. So I guess we'll see what happens there, but certainly we will review it if they want to bring us Frozen Zombies of the North.
Heck yes, especially if it's better than that one that we reviewed with Matthew Fox.
Oh yeah, that was rough.
Remember that?
Yes,
that gem?
I remember that gem. Mm-hmm.
Moving on, yep. GeekWire. What is this about, AJ?
Oh well, to me this just doesn't seem like I don't know. There's been a lot in the news about the self-driving cars and things like that, and one of the things that Apple is trying to patent is basically like doing virtual reality, like an augmented reality system, and in some ways to counteract motion sickness and that kind of thing. But
I think it's 100% for that.
Okay, but it's also allowing, in addition to this, allowing people to have a virtual experience, and they suggest relaxing things such as floating down a river, kind of seeing that stuff, but then also suggesting an exciting virtual experience, and this is a direct quote, such as a car chase or driving through a post-apocalyptic wasteland with zombies attacking.
Or anything in between.
Right.
Those are 2 extremes, and I can't imagine that anybody is like, wow, I've got a long drive, and I'm going to probably get car sick because I get car sick when I'm not driving my own car. What am I going to do? Yeah, I think I'll simulate running people over with my car in VR.
Yeah, it's a little strange, and I don't know about it. This just doesn't seem like a good idea to me, only because maybe you're not if it is self-driving, they're not going to have control of that. But I don't know. I worry that this could have real-world consequences somehow. But one of the other examples is that if the car stops at a light, it basically will act as if in the zombie apocalypse the car has stalled and the zombies are all going to catch up to them. And I don't know. It just doesn't. I don't know if this maybe as it progresses, this will seem like a better idea, but first glance, it's kind of freaking me out a little bit.
I'm just imagining a bunch of people at a red light all screaming in the back of their car with their VR headsets on. Oh, yeah. Who knows? We'll see if any of this. I think we're going to look back on this kind of stuff and be like, oh, what a bunch of idiots. Who thought that this was ever going to be a functional or thing? Or it'll be way cooler than that, and I don't know.
Well,
I'm just waiting for tube transport, man.
Yeah, I know. Well, the other part of this is that if it's supposed to fend against motion sickness, if you've ever suffered car sickness, I don't really that much, but I have in the past, depending on the situation, felt that way. I don't know that putting on a headset is necessarily the best idea, and I know that some of this is supposed to counteract that, but I just still don't see this as being a solution yet. But anyway, we'll keep people posted on that. I feel like this is a long way away, but maybe they were watching Ready Player One and decided that this was a good time to roll this out.
I haven't seen it.
I saw it last night, so.
Okay. Hold your...
I will hold my thoughts.
Hold your thoughts. I'm going to try and see it in 3D.
Ooh, I don't know about
okay.
that.
Cargo trailer dropped. Cargo trailer, the full-length version of the short film that we've already talked about on this pod. Well, that was like years ago, but Martin Freeman project set in Australia. Man carrying baby in zombie apocalypse. As we know, babies plus zombie apocalypse equal
bad.
H.A. Conrad's happy place.
Yeah, and we were discussing earlier before we started recording that they show a lot of plot points in this trailer. This is much more extended than anything that we've seen before.
It's 2.5 minutes, which I feel like is very long for a trailer.
Right, but if you've seen the short film, The Cat is Out of the Bag, about what this is truly about, I'm excited to see it. I love Martin Freeman. I'm excited to see what they did with this project. The short film was traumatizing and heartbreaking, so it was like super stressful to watch. So maybe this is I would imagine this is in a similar vein, but the production looks really good. And I think he was a good pick for this. And so I'm interested to see this when we actually review it. May 17th is when it comes out.
Yeah. Who knows how wide that's going to be. I have a feeling this is going to be a bit of an art house offering.
Yeah, and it may go, I mean, you may be able to download it pretty quickly is what I would imagine as well. So we'll keep everybody posted on that. And then I know we've been procrastinating a little bit. Well, not really, but as Stuart described, our review of the next 2 episodes was a little bit of a slog. Or our watching of the next 2 episodes was a slog. It was no less of a slog the second time watching. So we are reviewing episodes 7, which is Sing Me a Song, and episodes 8, Heart Still Beating, of The Walking Dead season 7. So, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, okay. So, why both of these episodes were an hour long, I don't understand.
Agreed.
They did not have enough story to tell 2 hours of, like, because basically they're like completely connected. Although they were not released on the same day, thank goodness. They were a week apart. December 4th, 2016, December 11th, 2016 is when these aired. The first one was directed by Rosemary Rodriguez and written by Angela Kang and Corey Reed. I think those are all very common names on this franchise. These are all seasoned veterans. But this episode just has, I mean, when you take them all together, all 2 hours of this, there are some plot points that happen, but a lot of this is just like turning screws of very slow plot advancement.
Yeah, and it's to me, and this is part of why I find it so much of a slog. We know Negan is evil. We know how evil he is, and so much of this to me felt like just more evidence of how crazy and evil and sadistic he is. Do we really need any more evidence of this?
Did we need like a really kind of drawn out tour for Carl around the sanctuary after he gets there and does his dumb thing?
Right.
Like, we have him with Negan at the sanctuary, and then we have him with Negan in Alexandria. And by the time you get to the end of this, and then by the end of this, Negan does some horrible things, it's just, you're so exhausted with this.
Right. And when I first started watching this, I was like, oh, these 2 episodes. And because I remembered how painful they were to watch, just in a pulling teeth kind of a way, just not exciting at all, not a ton of action, just more evidence. A little bit of like torture, sadistic porn is what I would call it. Just how evil can you get? And I guess in some senses it shows a little bit more of the compound that Negan has, a little bit more of that, a little bit more of Daryl looking like super dirty. I mean, whoever had to do Daryl's makeup, the greasiness of his hair and the grime kind of put into his skin. Good job, makeup person. We also see a little bit more of, I mean, it's been not even hinted at, it's been directly talked about, but how Dwight's face gets burned and things like that. We see the disciplinary actions of Negan for the people, that him sort of acting these things out directly. I don't know that we needed more evidence of this. We've already seen how he acts, but that's what they decided to do with this.
Yeah. Other elements of this episode include Carl's ridiculous attempt to kill Negan by going up to a bunch of saviors and saying, "Bring me Negan, I want to kill him," after shooting a couple people. And this, we kind of talked about this before. Negan somehow takes a shine to Carl because of how scary he is and what a psycho he is. This episode goes back and forth with Negan and Carl for the rest of it, and with Negan like teasing out this admiration that he has for him. It does seem like he's trying to turn him against Rick, because maybe he thinks that that's like the most damaging thing he can do to Rick, who he despises. But it's also, there are moments of like him expressing sympathy again, which I do like the way that they do this. It's just, and you know, like when Carl starts to cry when he's looking at his eye socket, and we get a lot of Carl's eye socket in this episode.
Yeah, and I mean that was, you know, I guess it was interesting that they showed that, because we have not seen that. But I don't know that Negan actually would show sympathy. I don't even feel that it's necessarily sincere.
No, sure, it's crocodile tears or whatever,
right,
but this is an interesting element of his character.
Well, it is interesting in that but he's already shown that he wants to use Carl's leverage, even from when we saw them on their knees in the first, you know, in the season finale of last season, the first episode of this season. He knows that Carl is leverage he can use against Rick. I think one of the interesting plot points that happens in this is that he had not been aware of Judith up until this point. And you know, even you know, when he drags Carl back to kind of go through the house, Carl's like weird effort not to have him see Judith's room is just like, yeah, that wasn't gonna work. So he's just looking for more leverage against Rick. So there's some awareness that he thinks Rick is still a threat. And even at the very end of this episode says, well, I don't know why I don't kill both of you. Mm-hmm. And Rick, I mean, Carl calls him out at some point in this episode when they're having one of their little interactions, and says, you know, you're not going to do anything because you would have already killed us by now. Well, Negan has a little bit of an idea that he wants to either play with Rick or use Rick and Carl for other purposes. And we also see that, you know, he's dangerous because he's so mercurial and unpredictable. So in places where you would expect him to kill people, like with Carl and Carl doing stupid stuff, he doesn't. He's instead using him for a long-range plan. And then even with Olivia, who he continually makes fun of. And I will say, it is interesting that she is still significantly overweight in this world, because she probably wouldn't be. And Eugene too. Not that they wouldn't, I just don't think that they would look like they do currently.
No.
But Olivia actually flat out slaps Negan in this episode, and he doesn't really do anything. He just kind of laughs. So
he tells her he's 50% more into her after she hits him.
Right.
That's the thing. Anytime you stand up to Negan, he likes you more. Up to a point, because if you're Daryl and you punch him after he's just knocked Abraham's skull in, well, then he'll kill your other friend. Yeah.
Right. So we have that, and then there's the super creepy stuff with him and Judith, her sitting in his lap, and that's a totally stressful thing to watch. And Carl does a good job at keeping it together, because he knows if he reacts, it'll just be worse. Also in this episode, we've got a lot of Rosita and Eugene interactions.
Two characters that I'm really not that interested in, frankly.
Yeah, another reason why this was tedious, and some of their stupid interactions. And what else do we have?
So Rosita is going through this like existential crisis, it turns out, which is maybe why she's been such an annoying one-note character, where she's like, well, all these other people have like couples that they're, you know, like they have a significant other, or they're strong, or they're smart. I forget even how she defined herself, but really she's just annoying.
Yeah.
She's telling this to Father Gabriel, who's also quickly emerging as one of the coolest people on the show.
Yeah, shockingly, but yes.
Because he's the one who tells Spencer he's just a giant shit.
Yes, but that he's...
And we're like, yes, we all agree.
Yeah.
It's not too late. It doesn't have to be terminal. But then it turns out, yes, it is terminal.
Right.
Spencer does his one cool thing for the entire series and pulls a zombie with a bow down off a tree and then translates a Latin note to find a stash of good stuff that immediately gets handed over to the Savior. So what was the point of any of it? Similarly... Rick and Aaron go through this insane obstacle course, and I might be jumping to the next episode, but because they're so continuous, it's like hard to tell.
Yeah.
They go through this insane amount of effort to get this guy's survival stash only to have it all taken away from them too. And that's part of what makes these episodes so painful, is there's no progress made.
Right.
Other than eventually at the very end of the second one that we watched, episode 8, Rick has a change of heart. Like, that is the payoff. That's our reward for these 2 hours.
Right.
Is Rick saying, I'm ready to talk about fighting back now.
Yeah,
like,
and that's
no,
it.
dude. I mean, Daryl does escape. But that's okay, but...
And Michonne's
I don't
doing
know.
her thing. So...
What's her thing again?
Well, so she's basically...
No, her thing, it makes no sense to me.
No, it
Her
doesn't
thing.
make sense, but it would be nice if they could have expanded a little bit upon why she was doing that.
Yeah, she's just like, I wanted to do my thing, but then I wanted it to be our thing. Like, I'm sorry, can you go back and explain what your thing was? Like, she hijacks a savior who's traveling alone, which I don't think they ever do.
Nope.
With the most obvious ambush plan ever, which is, yeah, okay, it takes a lot of time. It's like almost savior-esque.
Mm-hmm.
She kills like 50 walkers and puts them in the street so the car can't go through, and then walks up to the woman who is being extremely dumb and standing there looking at the pile of dead bodies and just says, give me your gun or whatever. She also has her safety on in this scene in the truck. That's okay, whatever. And then that whole sequence ends with the woman drives up to a hill. They look down at what looks like a zombie horde to me.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, that's Negan. And Michonne's like, that's them? They're all down there? I'm like, what are you even... That's a zombie horde. Why would you think that was Negan? And then the woman's like, you better shoot me now. I'm like, what is happening? Why does he have to...
It doesn't even
Why
make
does she
sense.
have to shoot the lady?
And then I would also say that, what was the other... I don't even know that particular episode. We probably can jump into 8 as well. But, what I was going to ask you, because one of the things that, and I thought would be, this was one of the things that frustrated me, is that they're all out scavenging. And if you did find all these supplies, such that Spencer did and Rick and Aaron did, wouldn't you maybe put them all in a place where you could then give them piecemeal to the saviors? I mean, I know you have to at least put some, give them some stuff, but why give it all at once? Like Spencer.
Well, they also didn't realize the saviors were going to be at Alexandria when they got back.
True. I forgive Aaron and Rick a little bit more because they didn't know that, but Spencer definitely already intended to do that. He basically said that to Rosita.
Yeah. And
it's like he just found basically the motherload of like medical supplies and all this other stuff. And as you said, it was totally pointless because he's just going to hand it all over to the saviors, and does. So that was I just found that to be ridiculous. And in the next episode, as you mentioned, we have, this is Heart Still Beating. Daryl finally escapes, and maybe we'll get cleaner. And we have a couple of deaths in this one, but even that doesn't even feel really all that exciting.
I mean, the final pool table scene is crazy.
So in this particular episode, Spencer basically continues to be a shit. And his big idea is that he is going to go to Negan, give Negan this information about the pool table or whatever. And then basically asks Negan to give him leadership of Alexandria, which is pretty ridiculous because it's not as if Spencer has ever liked or wanted to lead people. So even though his parents were the leaders, Spencer never took part in any of that. So that's kind of, I just found that to be insane. And then we have to say a sad goodbye to Olivia, everybody, but especially Negan's favorite punching bag. And this is more of the Negan proof that he is tough or whatever, but and another stupid, idiotic assassination attempt on him, which is, I would like to point out, Carl jumps off the back of a truck, kills 2 men, almost kills Negan, and gets basically a little tour and a kind of a father-dad chat with Negan all during the day. And Rosita tries to kill Negan, and it turns into like a crazy, I don't even know what to call it. Like, he's all wants to know who makes the bullet. It becomes this like weird hostage situation. And unfortunately, Olivia ends up getting killed. So, but even that was just kind of weird. So, and Spencer ultimately gets gutted, with a ridiculous, like, where's your guts? Oh, there they are, kind of a thing. But as you said, after all this, Rick is inspired to fight back. And we get a nice happy reunion between him and Michonne and Carl with Maggie.
Which is supposed to be our like happy moment because Maggie's smiling and they're all like happy to see each other. But I just am at that point, I'm exhausted and disinterested.
Right. And we see Daryl. Daryl gets reunited too. So that's a big deal too. So this is basically our core people are all in the same place again. And that is the only payoff for these two very tedious episodes.
It is really annoying. We also get to see a boot.
A couple boots.
There's two boots.
They don't match.
And that is our introduction to the newest faction that we'll get to meet more of in the second half of the season. And I would posit here today that they are the dumbest faction I've ever encountered in anything, let alone The Walking Dead. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, we don't need to get into that now since we had to go through these 2 episodes already.
But the fact that they got introduced in these 2 episodes only makes them worse.
I know. It actually, I feel, is a little bit of a precursor to the fact that they are the dumbest. I mean, it makes sense that they were introduced in these episodes, right?
Yeah, I guess if you're going to introduce them somewhere, might as well introduce them at the lowest point. So these 2 episodes had like 10 million each in viewers, and then the mid-season premiere next, when the show starts up again, has 12. So somehow 2 million people were persuaded to be like, oh yeah, let's see what's going on with The Walking Dead, which has to just come down to marketing.
True.
It can't be word of mouth and like, oh, you should have really seen what happened with the story. No.
Right.
Spencer's guts, and Spencer got returned as a zombie, and Rick did get to kill him. That was also just a slight
satisfying thing. Yeah. A little bit of satisfaction there. I guess what I would say is I'm glad. I wouldn't recommend other people watch this unless you really have to. You want to continue to watch season 7. But, the only thing I can say at this point is I'm glad those 2 are over and on to the next couple.
Yeah, the next couple are going to be... The next one's Rockin' the Road, which aired February 2017.
Yep.
And I don't know... Yeah, that's also Angela Kang, but directed by Nicotero. Like, jumped back in to right the ship.
Right.
And I think that's when the plans start coming together.
Right. But I should also point out that, episode 8 was supposed to be the mid-season finale. And to me, it definitely did not feel mid-season finale-ish. It didn't have the elements that you normally expect.
No, it's... Well, I mean, and I don't want it to be a formula for a mid-season finale. But it shouldn't be a real... Like, I think the only thing that they did was different is it was long.
Right. That's what it felt like.
And somehow the deaths of Spencer and Olivia are supposed to be like these earth-shattering events where we're like, dude, we never really cared about Olivia. She was nice, but nobody really cared about her. Because she was just a useless bean counter. And Spencer was always just a jerk. So, yeah, great. Get rid of Spencer.
But onwards, if you would like to comment on the slogginess of these episodes... feel free to email us at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah. One other thing that happened, HA.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were done. Go ahead.
I should be done, but I'm remembering that there was also a conversation between Morgan Carroll and that dude, Peter,
That's
maybe?
right. That's right. Yep.
And he's like, you guys need to join my efforts to fight the Saviors. And they're like, no, screw you. And he's like, you're going to regret this. Like that, and that's kind of the end of that. But it does set up some stuff that happens in the next half of the season.
Right. So, yeah, I forgot about that.
Because it was very forgettable, this entire experience. So I went back to look at the video of Michonne looking down the hill at the quote-unquote saviors. And it's a CGI crowd shot for about a mile and a half away, maybe a mile away. So I feel like story was probably, we're going to show her a huge crowd of saviors. But the way that it was done with, their CGI crowd effects and no close-ups, this was them falling down on the execution of what might have been a cool idea. Because They only had the split second to get this information across. They weren't going to spend gazillions of dollars on extras and get all of their savior actors together, like they did at the end of last season or in the beginning of the season 7. But if you look at this freeze frame, it has no visual distinction from a zombie horde. It's just a bunch of little dots on a road intersection. And we're supposed to take away from that is actually saviors because the savior says it is. And Michonne's face, which goes slack-jawed, which is supposed to also convey to us that is the truth. But from where I was sitting, I was like, nope, I don't see anything interesting there. That looks like a zombie horde. Turn around. Same. So that was poor execution, I think, on the part of, I don't know who, like special effects. I don't know what they were supposed to do because, the cost of actually showing how many saviors there are. And this is one of the things that's annoying about the saviors is every time you feel like, we just killed 40 saviors, that's probably it. Then like another 40 extras run from off screen, right? And I think that this shot was supposed to be like this defining moment for, hey, look, there's actually like 1,000 saviors, guys. But we never actually get to see it.
No, we don't have that payoff, which is ridiculous because it's like, okay, you built up this whole thing, so wouldn't that make sense? I don't know. Whose bright idea was that?
I know I'm just flogging a dead horse and preaching to the choir, but I do think that was a missed opportunity. And now we can end the podcast.
All right. Now you say what I had started to say.
If you want to yell at me for my negativity, you can reach me and HA at ReanimatedPcast on Twitter, reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com, and online at reanimatedpodcast.com.
Yes, and join us next time when we discuss episodes 9 and 10 of Season 7 of The Walking Dead. Hopefully we'll be a little bit more positive then.
I don't know, but we'll try.
We will. Ciao.
All right, bye.